And UPAN directors, if you would kindly help me monitor the chat. There's a lot of screens and a lot of extra stuff going on to manage here. Well, good evening, folks. Welcome to the Utah Prisoner Advocate Network monthly Zoom meeting. We're happy to have you all here with us. My name is Shane Severson, Director of Communications for UPAN, and I'll be introducing the other directors in just a moment. But before we dive into today's agenda, let's just take a moment to acknowledge a few housekeeping matters. First, please note that this session is being recorded and will be available on our Facebook page shortly after the meeting concludes. This ensures that those of us that couldn't join us today can catch up later. To make this meeting as interactive as possible, we encourage those that are on the Zoom call with us to participate by asking respectful questions or commenting at the appropriate times. As Molly's speaking, I believe she asked to hold the questions till the end. Just use your raise hand functionality when we get to the Q&A portion, and we'll unmute you accordingly. You can also post any of your questions for the UPAN directors and Molly using the Zoom chat, and we will address them during the appropriate times. Also, for the courtesy of all participants, kindly remember to mute yourself when you're not speaking, and that'll help minimize any background noise. And for those that are unable to attend this live session, this entire meeting will be, like I said, available for viewing later on our Facebook page, which can be found at facebook.com/Utah Prisoner. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get started. Excuse me. So for starters, I'd like to provide some background information about UPAN, for those that are new to the organization. I'm excited to tell you about our UPAN link tree. What it is a single convenient URL where families and supporters can quickly access all of our important resources and contact information in one place. The tool represents another step in our mission to empower families with the information that they need to advocate effectively and stay informed. So by centralizing our resources, we hope to make navigating the system easier for everyone. The tool hopefully makes it easier to stay ever connected with UPAN. And you'll see in the graphic there at the top of the link tree, you'll find links to the most critical information, which includes Utah Department of Corrections, family hotlines, and medical line for urgent needs. Also, direct access to join our family support group. If you're not already in the family support group, we highly recommend it. I'll tell you more about that in just a moment. Information about the upcoming events and meetings, and then also other ways to get involved, such as volunteering or donating. It also links directly to resources like our monthly newsletter, past meeting recordings, and how to contact important stakeholders such as Utah Department of Corrections and Utah Board of Pardons. So if you take away anything tonight, you might want to just at least remember or write down this link, and then everything will go there. If you go to that link, you'll probably find what you're looking for. It also has information about how to contact important stakeholders such as Utah Department of Corrections, Board of Pardons and Parole. So if you just go to Linktree, and it's spelled a little weird. So it's got one of those custom domains at the end. So the .ee, that's not a typo. That is actually how it's spelled. So linktr.ee/Utah Prisoner. And then I encourage you to go ahead and save that and bookmark it and share it with anyone who might find those resources to be useful. For those of you that are new or unfamiliar with UPAN, here's a little bit of information about who we are. We're a 501c3 nonprofit. We're all volunteer grassroots organization, and we're dedicated to advocating for meaningful change within the Utah criminal justice system. So our mission is to promote reform, provide support to incarcerated individuals and their families, and hopefully work toward a more just and humane prison system. UPAN was founded in 2013 by individuals deeply passionate about justice, many of whom have personal experiences with the criminal justice system, myself included. UPAN is committed to amplifying the voices of those who are often marginalized and overlooked. So we believe that the dignity and worth is inherent in every person including those who are incarcerated. We work tirelessly to advocate for their rights and well-being. We believe through education, outreach, collaboration, community partners, that we address issues like prison conditions, access to healthcare, mental health services, rehabilitation, reentry programs, and the impact of mass incarceration on families and communities. We do that in four main ways. One is education, so we host these monthly support meetings. We also send out UPAN newsletters to help keep the public informed about important issues. Two, we also do dialogue. We engage in open discussions with Utah Department of Corrections and county jail administrations to advocate for change and address for concerns. And three, also legislative advocacy, which we'll be talking about later tonight. We work with lawmakers to push for policies that promote fairness and accountability in the criminal justice system. And then four, community engagement. So we have host guest speakers, form coalitions with like-minded organizations, maintain a network of helpful resources for you. So our network is made up of volunteers, criminal justice advocates, industry professionals, expert advisors, coalition organizations, formerly incarcerated individuals, and over 2,000 Utah families of the incarcerated, and we continue to grow. The need is tremendous. At the core of our work are the stories and experiences of incarcerated individuals and their families. By listening to their voices and working together, we believe that we can create a meaningful change to hopefully build a more equitable and compassionate society. So whether you're a longtime supporter or new to our cause, we invite you to join us in making a difference. If you'd like to learn more or how to get involved, please visit us online. We have the UPAN website at utahprisoneradvocate.org, the aforementioned Facebook page at facebook.com/utahprisoner. We're also on all the social media channels, so we're on LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, X. I think I just signed us up for Blue Sky. So there's a lot of different ones out there. And then UPAN Family Support Group. That is a private support group on Facebook. So facebook.com/groups/UPAN Family Support. And UPAN Volunteers Committees Working Group. Also at facebook.com/groups/Utah UPAN Prisoners. You don't have to remember all that. Just remember that one link, the Linktree link. It's got all of that in there. So that's what they are. Okay, so with the UPAN directors, I just want to take a moment and thank and introduce you to the dedicated individuals that are behind UPAN. The makeup is ever changing, but nevertheless, we all work tirelessly towards our mission. So first and foremost, Molly Prince, co-founder and treasurer. She is instrumental in forming UPAN. Without Molly, there would be no UPAN. Same goes for Chris, also co-founder and secretary. Myself, Shane Severson, director of communications. Faye Jenkins, our director of sex offense policy issues. We have Ann Bradshaw, who was recently in charge of volunteer coordinator, and now she's kind of moved over to director of IPP issues and event planning. She was doing event planning before and doing an awesome job. Susan Sundstrom, our director of educational opportunity. Karen Thompson, our director of special projects, who is also responsible for organizing the holiday program. Warren Rosenbaum, our newsletter editor, works with Molly to put out a fantastic newsletter. 12 years in the making now. I think we're on the 12th year. Dion Corkins, our inmate newsletter volunteer coordinator. That's for people who do not have somebody on the outside, so that we have volunteers that send UPAN newsletters to people that don't have anybody on the outside, so that inmates can get a hold of that. Heidi Kuby, our director of Board of Pardons and Parole and also commissary issues. Amanda Bixman, our director of programming issues. You'll hear from her later. Carrie Mayer, director of reentry resources. And then I would be amiss if I didn't mention excuse me, if I didn't mention our med team, which is led by Jenny Robertson, our director of mental health policy. We've got Maureen Parker, nurse practitioner, Marshalene Mitchell, health educator. So with their, excuse me, my cat might walk across the camera here, so just ignore her. Every member of our team, they bring unique expertise and passion to our cause, helping to address a wide range of issues within the criminal justice system. So we're really grateful for their dedication and hard work. If you have any specific questions or you would like to get involved in any of our initiatives, you can connect with our team. As I mentioned before, we're 100% volunteer. If you're interested in volunteering, what opportunities, you can email us at volunteer@utahprisoneradvocate.org. No prior experience is necessary, but we do ask that you be reliable and commit whatever you commit to, that you follow through on that at minimum. But most of us, weren't subject matter experts when we started this journey, and so if there's something that you're passionate about, you see a need for that we're maybe not currently addressing, by all means, talk to us. Maybe we can get a committee spun up. We're always looking for people to help with research. We're always looking for honest, reliable, self-motivated individuals to also join our board of directors. So if you kind of start small and work your way up, and that's the best way to do it. So anyway, with that, I will shut up. I think we're really excited to do this. We haven't done a presentation like this in a couple of years. I can't even remember the last one that we did, Molly, but how to advocate for your incarcerated loved ones in the Utah prison system. Special thanks to Molly and Amanda. They will be speaking tonight. Karen Thompson also contributed to this. She will not be speaking, but we wanted to call out and thank her for that. And then I also contributed a little bit, tiny bit. So with that, I will turn the time over to Molly.
Okay, it's so good to see everybody here. I want to welcome our folks from Juab County Jail. And I love seeing all the directors and all the families. So thank you for showing up for this. It has been a while. When we used to do in-person meetings, we talked a lot about how to advocate. Since we've gone to Zoom, we've seemed to also have a lot more presenters of different topics. So we don't always talk about that, and we end up doing it in emails and on the Facebook group. So we thought that it was time to share some information about how to manage our advocacy individually, and then that spreads to the group. Okay, Shane. I'm not an expert on Zoom PowerPoint, so Shane's going to hit next for me every time. So we're going to start out with, there are three parts to this. And we're going to start out with basically some basic definitions, and then we're going to work into how to actually advocate and manage our emotions during advocacy. So, what is advocacy? It's focused on ensuring the rights, safety, and well-being of incarcerated individuals. And okay, I want to be clear, this advocacy is all about prison advocacy. And we work towards systemic changes in the prison system for humane treatment, rehabilitation, and successful reintegration of inmates. That's the broad definition. We've made a lot of progress this year. I can't do this presentation without sending a shout out to the new administration in UDC, Brian Redd and his executive team. While there's still a long way to go, he has opened things up for us for the first time. We've had tours this whole year of both USCF and CUCF. So these pictures are just from some tour days. The first one is when we toured the Bear 2 Solid program back in August at the Salt Lake Prison. And the second one is when 8 of us got to tour the current, meaning CURRANT, the Infirmary, Mental Health, and Men's Geriatric Facility in USCF. Next. So our goals and the paths that we take to reach those goals include some areas of focus. So one, we want to protect the rights of incarcerated individuals. And this includes humane conditions, access to basic needs, as well as due process, especially when it comes to grievances and how they handle things in the prison system. UPAN itself does not get involved in the court system. So I just want to make that clear. When we're talking about due process, we're talking about what's happening within the prison system. We want to promote the rehabilitation and support programs for education, mental health, substance use treatment, risk reduction courses, self-improvement programs, vocational programs, and job training, sex offense treatment. There's there are a lot of programs within the prison system that none of us even know about. So we're going to try to figure that out. And we are focusing also on trying to figure out which IPP jails have quality programs and which don't. Um, and then we're going to we always are working on trying to improve conditions and address issues like safety and security and housing assignments, the understaffing in our prisons, the inadequate health care, mental health care, lack of therapists and treatment providers, nutritional issues, safety and security issues, access to communication and visitation with family and support systems, lack of access to legal resources within the system, and anything that becomes a problem. And for example, right now, today, we are having huge issues with the phone systems again in both prisons. And we've had issues with getting people to video visiting in USCF this past week. So it's a constant flow of things. We get one thing fixed and something else comes up. And then we want to support the reentry. We're encouraging UDC and APNP to continue to develop and improve programs to assist people that are transitioning back into the community upon release. And we want to support and partner with community organizations that focus on offering those resources. And there are quite a few that do that. And right now, there is a stakeholders group that Carrie May, who is our Director of Reentry Resources, is attending with the UDC and a variety of community organizations towards that end. Okay, next. Healthcare is a huge area of focus. We've made progress since families were able to get the legislative audit of medical done several years ago, and there have been a couple follow-ups. And since DHHS took over the oversight, there has been significant improvement in addressing the medical and mental health needs of our 6,800 and counting state inmates, whether they're IPP or in the prisons. But we're not there yet. Okay, we've got improvement, but we can't stop. We are advocating against excessive medical copays, and those were implemented in 2009. And Dr. Wisner at DHHS is on the same page as I am, is we need to find a way to do something to reduce or eliminate those medical copays. So that's a long-range goal. And then we're advocating for increased treatment in the specialty areas that are underserved. This could include hepatitis C treatment. There are certain types of cancers that seem to be just let go until they're stage 4, and the prison doesn't do much about them. And then there's the MAT, the medication-assisted treatment for substance use disorders. So we are actively working on those things. Next. Okay, we already talked a little bit about programming and education. We want to make sure that they have access to educational and vocational training, including college and literacy programs and higher education. And Susan Sundstrom is dedicated to working on that. We're also continuing to work to ensure that there are enough treatment programs in the system to accommodate the large number and the waiting list for those needing substance use treatment and sex offense treatment. We want them to expand their risk reduction courses. Those are the ones that are on people's CAPs, the case action plans, the ones that the board is going to require, the ones that are directly related to whatever it was that got someone into prison, as well as the self-awareness and self-improvement programs that are offered by other volunteer organizations like New Path Foundation, Captain My Story, Defy Ventures, and then there are a myriad of programs offered in the prisons by volunteers. The IPP jails are a little different, and that's what we're trying to get a handle on. Some IPP jails have great programs, and some say they have programs and don't, and others just have a handful of programs. So we're working on all of that. Next. Okay, conditions of confinement. I bet I send emails about safety and security issues, hygiene issues, access to things just like vaccinations. They just barely gave the vaccinations in USCF last week to the things that we've had access to since August out here. Um, and then RNO is another focus, and it's kind of one of my pet projects, is trying to help the administration take seriously how harmful it is for people coming into the system in RNO to be so severely restricted from having contact with their families, their support system, their attorneys during those first several weeks. Right now, people in RNO are only allowed 135 minutes per month phone calls, which is absurd. Um, So I came up with this arbitrary number that I'm trying to talk to them about, which is 480 minutes, which would be 4 30-minute calls per week. And that's really because they're not let out of their cells on a regular basis. RNO is just like being in maximum security. But this way they can talk to families. Families can learn how to handle their business. People on parole violations or probation violations need to be able to have their families help them with their attorneys. There are just so many. So if there's anybody out there that's passionate about RNO that wants to team up with me and we create a director of RNO issues, I think that would be fabulous. Okay, next. Legal resources. There is no law library, as everybody knows, in the prison, and the contracted attorneys aren't really very helpful. So we want inmates to be able to have legal materials and then the fair grievance process. We were told that they could have legal materials on the tablets, but that's a whole nother issue because not everybody has access to a tablet. And then connections. It's vital for incarcerated people to have communication and connections with families through the phone, mail, visitation, email, whatever it may be, whether they're in a county jail or in a prison throughout the entire incarceration process. The IPP, as we already know, is extremely expensive. And so that's another area that Anne has stepped up and is our director of IPP issues now. She's taken on a tremendous responsibility to try to figure out all the rules for every jail, but we're going to make some progress, and I think 2025 will be some progress in that area. Next. Okay, there are a variety of organizations that do advocacy, and so sometimes people think that UPAN like does it all, but we don't. So we're very specific to the prisons. So is the prisoner advocate group, Ronnie Wilcox and Sue Steele. Very specific issues within the prisons is what we focus on. There are other nonprofit organizations, groups like Journey of Hope, Justice by Objectives, that provide peer support to both incarcerated people in jails and prisons, as well as in the community. Oh, I'm sorry. IPP stands for Inmate Placement Program. It is one of the programs that UDC has had since the 1980s where they farm, oh, they don't like me to use that word, where they assign people to county jails that they have contracts with, which was once used to reduce overcrowding in our old prison. And in the beginning, it was to get people closer to their families, and it would help the counties because they would pay the counties money, etc. Now, there's just no rhyme or reason to why or how they send people to county jails. There really isn't. It's almost, I'm going to risk saying this, it feels to me, and I think to a lot of people in some of the county jails, like a punishment. If you're a good inmate, you don't cause problems, you're healthy, you're a great candidate to be sent to a county jail where you're not going to have as many opportunities as you would in either of the prisons, and you're not going to get the kind of rec time. You're not even going to get to go out into a yard with, you're going to get to go into a little cement enclosure that you might see the sky. And I'm generalizing our 26 county jails, but that's kind of how it is. Um, I saw some smiles from Juab, so maybe I'm sort of close to the accurate description. Um, and then we have other providers of services. We have tons of nonprofit organizations in the community that go in and provide classes and programs within Utah's jails and prisons. And there are way too many to list. Okay, next. Oh, Millard allows inmates to have one 10-minute video visit a week. Is that it? That's absurd. That is not okay. And it probably cost them $10 for that one 10-minute. I don't know. I'm making an assumption because I know having someone in a county jail is a very, very, very expensive prospect compared to in a prison. Okay. Then we've got legal advocates. And these are other types of advocates that offer assistance with appeals, clemency petitions, and legal rights, such as the ACLU or Disability Law Center. These could also include paid for-profit attorneys and law firms, government agencies such as the Post-Conviction Division of the Utah Indigent Appellate Defense Division, and then I already said the ACLU and the Disability Law. Oops. Okay, next. Okay, finally, we've got family support groups, which UPAN also does as on our family Facebook group and sort of in these meetings. These meetings used to be when we met in person, they were really completely family support groups. Now that we're on Zoom and we're broadcast all over and we don't know who's going to see them in the end, we don't have as many family meetings because we want to still make it a safe place for people to be. But we have a lot of speakers that talk about different things. So it's really important. It's really been helpful in the family group to have people support each other on their prison journey. Okay, next. Okay, how do we do this? We do it by these meetings. We host these workshops. We publish our monthly newsletter. And we have public events to inform the community. And this also includes the use of our social media to keep the public informed. Legislative advocacy. UPenn we've had four over the past decade or 11 years, we've had four Meet Your Legislator Night in-person meetings. The last one was in October of 2019. And then COVID hit, and we haven't had one since. But the picture here is four of the legislators at that Meet Your Legislator Night in 2019. Families can write their legislators, which will be talked about later. And then we work with other organizations as well as the UDC administration to try to look at their policies. And they've made some exceptions in the recent years, or well, year and a half. We've made some progress. And okay, next. We have some challenge in prison advocacy. And the first was the lack of transparency. And that we have been dealing with forever, and the difficulty in accessing accurate information about inmate treatment and prison conditions. We're getting more information now, but of course, what we get, depending on the source, is going to have that source's, it's filtered through that source's perception. There's a negative public perception of incarcerated individuals and by association, the families. Resource limitations. Nonprofits and advocates often work with limited funds and volunteers, just like UPenn. We're just completely, we get small donations here and there. Like every time I buy my groceries at Smith's, there's a little small piece of what I spend gets sent to UPenn. But we don't have any major grants. So without significant funding, we pay for it all ourselves, and prison already stretches us thin to have incarcerated loved ones. But I think over the last 11 and a half years, we've done really well. And the challenges, we have choices, like this little sign says. We can avoid our challenges, we can confront them, and we can ask for help, which is what the collaboration does and what we do with you families. Okay, next. And we've had systemic resistance in the past, which was pushback from the prison and the Sheriff's Association, anyone that didn't want to talk to us and change. But this all changed in May of 2023 when Brian Redd took over as the director of UDC. This current administration has proven to be much less resistant to change and now are engaged in making changes that improve the prison experience for inmates, families, and staff. And I want to reiterate, it's not there. We keep singing them praises because we have never had the kind of communication or opportunity to work with UDC ever before, but we're not there. And they acknowledge we're not there. But one of the big things they did this year was they sponsored the first Utah Department of Corrections Citizens Academy. And I think it was 8 of us directors, 6 or 8, I think 8 of the UPAN directors participated in this 10-week course between August and October. It was about 40 hours worth of participation. We got our certificates. This is a picture of our graduation night when we graduated from that. And it was very intense, and it was like drinking out of a fire hose. But we learned a lot about how things worked, which helps us understand what we're up against. If we know how things work, we're more likely to make more helpful suggestions and solutions. Okay, next. Okay, over the time of UPAN, 11 and a half years, families have managed to get legislative audits performed. There have been some meaning reforms in healthcare access and oversight, programming availability. Believe it or not, before we had the audit of the sex offense program, things were a lot worse than they are now. So they're getting better. And then improvement in the processes that the Board of Pardons and Parole currently uses, which it was like 7 years ago that the legislative auditors said they needed to have an electronic record system. And with the slowness of the funding and the state division of technology or whoever did it. But as of this past fall, the Board of Pardons now has a new electronic record system completely in place. And then we feel like we've helped empower people to give them a voice, incarcerated individuals to have a voice and families to have a voice. The administration is listening to our suggestions and concerns. Dr. Wisner of DHHS has told us numerous times in meetings, well, I don't know who all he's told, but he's told Ginny and me, you will always have a place at the table. They want to know what we are seeing as families, what we are seeing, what our loved ones incarcerated are seeing when it comes to medical, mental health, dental, those kinds of issues. And as of 2024, there's an Incarcerated Individual Advisory Council in USCF. I heard it's supposed to be developing in CUCF. Unfortunately, I doubt if the county jails, because that's going to mean each sheriff is going to have one of these councils. I don't know if they're going to do that. And then as of 2024, we have Ski Afatasi, who is the UDC's Stakeholder Experience Coordinator, and he interfaces with the UDC administration as well as incarcerated people and advocacy groups and then other resources. And he's been instrumental in opening doors. Next. Okay. Oh, we have had some improved conditions in both the women's prison and the men's prison in Utah. We did make a little strides this past year. UDC implemented one video visit when people were in R&O. So if they're in R&O for a month or 2 months, they will at least get one video visit. We think they should have more, but it's a start. And we were able in the last couple of years to get the photographs in the visiting approved through the administration. And the quarterly gift packages in the two prisons have been implemented over the last couple of years, and they would not even be considered 5 years ago. That administration didn't even want to talk to us about it. And then improved oversight of correctional health services by DHHS. And now, oh yes, I was in a meeting today. We now have a prison hospice task force. I've been complaining for many years about the need for a true hospice and long-term care in Utah's primary prison, which now would be USCF. We now have a task force that's working on that and UDC has asked, please get us training materials, please get us. So we're working on that. So that's progress. Next. Okay, I want to get to some of the meat and potatoes of this. So when we have a problem with UDC, when we have a problem in life, there are always two parts to a problem, and this is just so basic and important for us to understand. There's the emotional part. That's how we feel about the problem. That includes the actual situation, other people in the situation, how we feel about ourselves in the situation, and whatever the actual issue is. And then the other part of that is the practical part, which are the actual factors that contributed to the problem. So in the emotional part, we get busy making assumptions about everyone and everything in the problem. Oh, every guard, just wants to see prisoners fight. Okay, we hear that all the time from families. Or when they don't take my loved one to a video visit, I immediately assume, well, they just don't care. Sometimes it's a substitute officer from AP&P that doesn't even know that he's supposed to let them walk to visiting at a certain time. And so I'll just use myself as an example. If I get all upset because I missed a video visit and I sat here for 45 minutes because you have to log on at 15 minutes ahead of time and you wait and you wait and you wait. And I'm wasting my time and they never bring them. And I'm emailing saying, are the visits closed? Is there a lockdown? And nobody answers me. I start getting upset. And it's easy to be angry at the prison. It's easy to be angry at my loved one for being in prison. It's easy to get angry at myself for expecting everything to go smoothly in the first place. It's easy to just have that unknown, the fear. What's happened? Is he in medical? Because last week when he didn't show up to my video visit, he was in medical, right? It was legitimate. But because the phones aren't working, he couldn't call me and tell me that he was going to miss it. Well, he tried, but it didn't ring on my end. So I can get really wound up. I have to step back and then start thinking, okay, what could all the reasons be? And then when we get to the practical part, that's when we start looking at the who, what, when, where, why. Okay, next. So we work through our strong emotions and feelings about the overall situation, the people, and the actual issue. And then when we do that and step away and let our minds clear, we can be calm, we can research, we can gather information. And Amanda is going to talk a lot more about that. And with our emotions in check, we're able to more clearly and effectively communicate to the appropriate staff administrators in a manner that welcomes discussion and collaboration. Next. The other piece is we need to educate ourselves. If our loved one calls and says, well, they took all my t-shirts away, well, we need to know, how many t-shirts are you allowed to have? Oh, I'm allowed, I don't know, I don't remember. So I'm going to say, I'm allowed to have 7 t-shirts. Okay, how many did you have? Well, I had 19. Well, okay, then when you had the shakedown, they're going to take, 12 of those t-shirts away. Okay, so don't ask me for money. My loved one doesn't ask me for money for t-shirts, but like, don't call me and say, well, now all my clothes are gone, so I need to order more, right? if I know the policy. If I don't know the policy, if I don't know the reality, then I'm just going to be mad because then I'm going to think, well, all they want to do is make more money on commissary. They just keep taking their stuff away, right? So I'm not minimizing the shakedowns that happened recently for those of you whose loved ones lost a lot of property. I know my loved one lost property because it was altered. You know, he sewed pockets into a pair of his pants. They took them, right? You cut off the sleeves of a sweatshirt. They're going to take it, right? So, oh, you sew to mend the hole in your t-shirt. They're going to take it, but they have their policies. So you can go to the UDC website that Amanda's going to explain more about, and you can scroll down and look through all the policies based on whatever the issue it is that you're working on. And you get to that from the family and friends page. Okay, next. Um, we need to continue to educate ourselves on everything. We cannot make assumptions about what the rules are or what the reasons for the policies are. And we really can't advocate if we're not aware and if we don't understand the why. And sometimes I've found that the why of the prison is no longer valid. Years and years ago, they would not allow a married woman to visit a man, single or married, without either her husband or his wife or his parent. And when I complained about it, because that happened when I would try to visit my nephew without my husband, because I would have a day off and he wouldn't. And it was because, oh, some women got in a fight in the parking lot over a man once. Okay. So we got that changed to where now, I don't need an escort of his mother or I used to have to take his stepmother with us because his father couldn't. Anyway, it's complicated. So if you know what the reason is, then we can make a case to change something. We also recommend that you subscribe to the UPAN monthly newsletter if you don't already. The newsletters for the past year are currently on our website, but we talk about a variety of different things in those newsletters. Some of them are going to be really relevant to you and some of them aren't. But if you hang on to them, archive them in your files on your computer, whatever, they have a lot of stuff that's important that you might come across needing to know about. And then attend our meetings. We try to have good guest speakers every month. Next. And know who we're talking to, know who our audience is, whether we're emailing, whether making a phone call, know our audience. And this is our audience. This is the current administration, which means the executive team and then all the directors of all the different divisions and the wardens. Although it's a little old, it shows Bart Mortensen as a warden, and now it's Sharon D'Amico in in USCF, and Bart's over reentry and rehabilitation. But these are real people, and they have real lives, and it really helps. And in the Citizens Academy, we got to know some of those administrators, and it really helps to know them and their personalities. And I know not everybody can know everybody and their personality, but if we remember they're like real human beings that may be having a bad day, so we need to be careful how we come at them with our advocacy. Okay, next. Then we're going to create our message. We need to be clear and concise. We need to organize our information logically. I have tried a lot of times to bullet point histories to make it clear and concise instead of one long narrative paragraph, because if they're reading it, I want them to get the gist of what I'm talking about and why. And then we have to choose an appropriate tone based on the context. So using the right words, having a non-combative tone can get our serious concerns across without coming off as aggressive, threatening, or critical. And remember, all of us as human beings have a tendency to shut down and not listen to someone coming at us when they're criticizing us or they are being combative. This applies to our written emails and communications. Okay, next. Choose the right method of communication. Sometimes it'll be a phone call, sometimes it'll be an email, sometimes it will be in a meeting with corrections, or you might end up in a Google meet with them for whatever reason. And so we have to be aware of how we present ourselves. I love email because it provides a record and a history that I can go back and look up for both myself and the other person. So I think for UPAN, emails are generally the best so that we can step back and think about what we've written before we hit send and make sure we know what we're going to say so we can get ourselves out of that emotional headspace and take a time out. A phone call is going to be interpreted through the perception of the listener, and our words cannot be changed once we've said them. So I recommend if you're going to do a phone call, make notes before you do the phone call. And then be considerate of the person answering the phone. When we call the prison, the person that answers is not likely to be the person that's going to resolve your problem. They're just a messenger to send it to the right person. And then I talk about at the end, if we're in meetings with corrections, make sure we have our notes or a list of what we want to talk about so that we stay on point. Next. Now, this picture, has anybody ever felt like that when wanting to talk to corrections? Okay. Um, this is what we don't want to do. Our nonverbal communication, our tone of voice, our loudness of voice, use the tone of voice that aligns with what we want to get across. Remember that the person on the other end does not really know you well. So be careful of being demanding or stern because you don't know them either. And they're not a robot. It's kind of like calling customer service at, I don't know, Verizon, right? It's not their fault that my phone is messing up. We have to communicate. And that's the same with people at UDC. They're not the ones that can resolve our problem. Now, when we do get to the ones that resolve our problem, we still have to be careful how we come across. Otherwise, they're going to shut down and not talk to us. Next. So we want to be a little more receptive. We want to say what we need to say, but then focus and give our attention to the other person that's speaking. And it's really important in meetings to avoid distractions when we're in meetings with corrections. I love being in the in-person meetings because I can stay focused. Sometimes in the Zoom meetings, it's easy to go answer my door or something, and then I miss crucial stuff. So try to stay focused. Learn to ask questions to clarify and confirm what we are understanding that they're saying, and then acknowledge what's been said and let them know that you're absorbing or understanding what they're saying and clarifying. Okay, Shane, next. And then finally, we even when we're advocating, we want their feedback. So I can call and say, or usually it's email, but I can say, I'm really frustrated about missing my visit. This is what I think happened. But I will say, can you help me understand? Can you help me understand what's happening? Can you help me understand what my loved one might need to do to make sure he can get to his video visit? And I'm using the video visit because it's a very innocuous thing. It's a lot different when we're worried because our loved one got attacked or stabbed or moved out of a perfectly good program at USCF into an IPP jail that offers nothing. So, but when we have those conversations, be open for feedback and check for understanding. The pictures here I put in to illustrate this. Like I said, 8 of us got to go on a tour of the current unit, which is the infirmary, the mental health, and the geriatric men's unit in USCF. And we had Dr. Wisner there. We had Captain McDonald, Lieutenant, I think his name's Christensen. We had the director of the pharmacy. We had the director of mental health. And we really were able to ask questions, get answers, clarify, share our concerns. And then we were able to talk to some incarcerated individuals too about what they're hoping for. And that's what we need to do. Gather as much information as possible. Okay, next. We also want to adapt. We might need to be flexible in our approach based on the person that we're talking to, including their position, their openness to discuss what we want to discuss, their responses, or changes in context of what we're responding to. This includes all types of communication. I think many of us have been to a visit, and we know that there are certain officers that we can ask questions and get very clear, straightforward answers from. And there are other officers that just aren't interested in sharing information with us. And we have to be okay with that, right? We can't, we need to look at the big picture and focus on what is our ultimate goal instead of saying, well, Mr. Jones, Officer Jones shouldn't be an officer because he doesn't answer me the way I want him to. No, that's just the way Officer Jones is. So learn to adapt. Go to officer somebody else. Okay, next. Um, Beware of our own emotions that are coming up that become a barrier to effective communication. And this talks about if UDC staff seems to be becoming frustrated or impatient, step back and try to use empathy and understand how challenging it might be to be them, right? Especially when we're talking to officers that are dealing with high stress situations or even officers in visiting. You know, there were some officers the other day that it was sad to see because one of the units was locked down, so people were turned away. I was lucky enough to not be in one of those units and I got to have my visit. But they had to deal with those people's frustration, and it wasn't their fault. I watched them get the phone call from the housing unit and hang up and look at each other and then say, anyone from this unit, please come here. And then they explained that it was locked down and that no, waiting for 10 minutes wasn't going to get them in. They were locked down. The visits were completely canceled. So we have to understand how to work with them and not just be demanding about what we want. We can be disappointed, but we need to learn how to do that. And we can always clarify that we understand that they're not the one that caused it. Reassure them that we appreciate their efforts to understand what your concerns are and their efforts to find solutions. If the barrier is a non-response to an email you've sent, review the email and see if the tone of it comes across harsh or critical, demanding or threatening. You might not get a response. Actually, I guarantee you're not going to get a response if you threaten to sue. And I know this for a fact because I've been told that they'll call me and say, okay, you need to know that there's some family members that are threatening to sue us, so we're not going to talk to them. They now have to go to the Attorney General's office. That's their policy. So don't threaten to sue them. Okay. I think we feel like if we threaten them, that will make them back off and do what we want, but it won't. Okay, next. Okay, so the key principles, research and know all the aspects of the problem. Deal with our own emotions. Try to use empathy to understand their side of it. And we might, if we understand why their policies are the way they are, try to be consistent in our communication and allow time for feedback. Be patient. They do not change things quickly. Okay, next. Okay, we might have a couple minutes for some time and then Amanda's going to present. So do we have anything in the chat or has anybody seen anything that is an important question based on what I just talked about?
Not too much, just some minor things. We were just, somebody asked what IPP stand for. May said, I do have to mention that inmates with ADA needs to struggle with visits in R&O and as well as medical and other needs. So my heart goes out to all who are trying. Somebody asked about how do you go about donating your Smith's rewards. I posted a link there. I think you sign up for the rewards, and then I don't know if somebody that shops at Smith's, I think you go on their website and you just put in a charity, right?
Yeah. Yeah, go to that link and you put in you get to choose what charity it is, and Utah Prisoner Advocate Network is on there.
Yep.
Okay.
Somebody asked if these slides will be shared. Yes, I will share them. I'll share them on social media. I'll also post them to the website for those that don't have access to the social media. So after this meeting, check our website.
Okay, well, I'm going to turn the time over to Amanda to do her portion from her own experience, trial and error, and learning.
Hi everyone, I'm Amanda, and my son is incarcerated, which has brought me to this journey of trying to help not only myself, but anyone else along this journey as well. Shane, will you run the slides for me too? Because I don't know how to do that. So when you're having an issue, the main things that I focus on are all of the details. I get as much information as I can. It's, what happened, names of anyone who are involved, if it's the officers, if it's, a case manager, if it's another inmate, just whatever it is, like if it's a problem serious enough to take it to the next level, then I make sure I gather all the information, dates and times, who was around, just any information you can get to make sure you have a clear picture of exactly what happened.
And when you want me to go, just say
next. Okay. UDC asks families to email Jade Watkin in Constituent Services of the UDC Public Information Office, who tracks the concerns and forwards to the appropriate division director, warden, etc. So these are a list of their emails. So you can send them an email. I have gotten to know who the deputy wardens are of each building. I've just really educated myself. I spend a lot of time on educating myself before I log a complaint. If you know who's over the area, you can email them as well. I'm not super savvy on who is over the different buildings at USCF, but I do know all the wardens at the CUCF facility. They're super helpful, and all the deputy wardens there have been amazing to work with, and I always get a response from them. I'll email them, and then I'll also CC the warden to the prison on it, and I also CC UPAN. Here's information for if it's a medical need. You can reach out to Jade Watkin or Karen. I don't know how to say her last name. Is it Tafay?
Papahi.
Oh, Tapahi, sorry. And her information is here on the screen, and the phone numbers for the med lines. And then an important thing to remember is they will only talk to you if your loved one has filled a medical release of information form, and you have to have your name on it. This has been an issue in my case before, but they won't give me any information, but they would still hear me out. So that was really nice. And they're really nice to work with. Next. The checklists and steps for preparing an email. You need to try to understand the complaint from both sides. I have not had a problem where I wasn't able to see it from both sides. And then it's important to identify both sides when writing the complaint. I always ask my son or whoever I'm advocating for, if they know what their house rules are, if they get moved to a different housing section, there's rules that are different for each housing unit, and they are posted somewhere in the unit. I can't tell you exactly where, but I know that they're there. And you just need to have your loved one look for those. And even though they have certain privilege levels, doesn't mean that it doesn't pertain to your housing unit. So you might have all the privileges in the world, but if your housing unit doesn't recognize those, it doesn't matter. Next. Do your homework. Here's the thing. I never send complaints immediately after writing them. I write them on paper, and and I'll write the whole complaint out, and it can be pages. And then I reread it, and then I correct things, and I make sure that I have a good timeline in there of the specific things that might have taken place in this incident, and times, is there any cameras around, where they might be able to go and review their camera footage, just anything. I get so much information, and then I put it down, and if I'm not at my house, I take out my phone and I make notes, and I have it on my phone, and then I have those specific details to refer back to, so that I make sure I get all of the information right, because I don't want to take it to them and look like an idiot. It's hard to not get emotional sometimes when your loved one calls you and it's like the world is on fire, and then you feel like it's on fire too, and I just have to take a minute and think logically through the problem. Just replay the scenario like it says, and make sure that I know the rules and policies and what is expected by the prison. And that's like what I was talking about with the housing rules, and making sure they know their housing rules. And then if it's not pertaining to that, I always look up my information that I'm not sure of for their policies on the UDC website under Family and Friends. If you click on the Family and Friends link, there's a tab you can click on that's called Policies. And if you click on that link, then there's folders in there, and it's A through H, and it's all the different policies of the prison and the administration. It even has a chart in there where you can see what your loved one's privilege levels are. So you can help navigate that and try to figure out, if your inmate tells you I'm an IL5, you can go on this chart and find the I and then see, and it's even down to the visits, like how many visits they're allowed each month. And it's really useful. And even if I don't know exactly what I'm looking for in there, I just read anything that might pertain to the problem that I'm trying to solve. And also, from a past experience, instead of just complaining about a problem, I try to help offer a solution as well. Or I try to help be part of the solution, along with UDC to try to fix a problem moving forward. Next. Then I compose the email, and it's important to understand the people you're emailing. They were not involved in the issue, more than likely. And they're also the ones that are probably going to be the ones solving your problem. So you always want to be very respectful, explain your issue, take accountability for anything that your loved one might have been in the wrong for, so that it's not just, you know, pointing fingers at them like you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. You know, there's always two sides, and it's important to see both sides of that. Explain any corrective actions that your loved one is already doing themselves, like if it's a matrix problem where they have too many letters or they have too many pictures, and your loved one is already going through that and getting some to send home, you know, say that. Just say, you know what, they're addressing this issue, so they will be in compliance. And then just ask for help from them to control what we can't control. Next. Take another time out and step away for a few minutes. And this is super important because, like, you know, it's hard not to act on your emotions sometimes. And you really need to make sure it's so important that your emotions are under control. And I write my email, I read it to my husband, I'll read it to my daughter-in-law, my daughter, just, you know, does this come off okay? I don't want to come off attacking because it wasn't this person's fault that this happened. Next. Oh, I just said that. Make sure it doesn't come off attacking. Yes. Read your email to your husband, sister, friend, etc., and see how they perceive it. Revise it if it's attacking or has language that would be perceived as inflammatory or attacking. Because you, like I said, it's just really good to be respectful, and you're not going to get results if you're not. They just will choose not to help you, and then, you know, there's nothing you can do about it. And then if all is well, send it. And then, like Molly said, they stop all communication if a family member becomes aggressive in their emails or phone calls, uses foul language, or says they are going to sue the prison. If you threaten them, it's over for you, and you're not going to get anywhere. And going through the Attorney General it's just, you know, you're not going to get any problem solved that way. So is that all from me? Yeah, I think so. Does anyone have any questions for me on the writing on behalf of your loved ones?
I don't see any questions in the chat. Is anybody live online here or in the chat? Oh, here's a question. Molly or anyone, when I have seen a clear violation of an officer activity or have seen officer bias, I'm concerned to make an issue of this by starting a formal complaint because of concern of retaliation to my loved one. So I have not initiated concerns over a few different issues in the past. How would you suggest we proceed in the future?
I'd like to answer that. Retaliation is a very real thing, and we want to be really careful of it, which is why you can send an email with all of the specific information to me. And just for the record, I do not identify the person who sends me the complaint or the person that writes me the letter unless it's necessary, like to get medical care, or unless I have permission. Like if a family member asks me to, you know, their son was stabbed and asks me to try to help get him moved, then obviously I need that son's name and offender number. But for complaints about officers or any staff, send me all the details. Send me the date, the situation, everything you can. And I am happy to send that to the warden and to actually Chief Honey, who's over the Division of Prison Operations, because if it's an officer, then they fall under the staff under the Division of Prison Operations. If it's a non-commissioned, like a non-officer staff, then I can still send it up to administration. And that way your name's not in it. So that's the way I suggest it. I am careful not to do anything that's going to bring bad things to either my loved one or your loved ones. Like if you complain, but I'm careful too because I have a loved one in there and they've figured out that, well, in visiting, they figured out that he's my loved one. So he kind of has to behave in such a way that reflects well on me, but I have to make sure that I am super appropriate so that it doesn't fall back on him. Like we're all very aware of this. So yeah. And May says, what if you have no choice to talk to other people about it? I'm very careful, but honestly, it's hard when they don't respond to a lot of nice emails. So again, Maze, if you want, you can, I know you've sent me stuff in the past where you've kind of hit a brick wall and I've gone ahead and sent it. And what I say is I've heard from a family, I call everybody family members. I've heard from a family member a concern about XYZ. And the other thing about advocacy is we don't always get an acknowledgement. We don't always get a response that we want. Like sometimes I just want somebody to say, oh my gosh, I am so sorry that happened. We're not always going to get that from corrections because they're not going to admit anything. They protect themselves, right? Just like I try to protect families and incarcerated people from getting targeted, they try to protect themselves. And I will never hear what sanctions have been taken against an officer unless I find out that that officer, there have been a couple occasions, some pretty blatant things have happened. And I've learned from other incarcerated people, that officer took an early retirement. Okay. I'm never going to know if it's because of what was complained about or some other reason. But yeah. So that's what I just suggest to everybody. Okay. I'm going to stop with that now. Oh, okay. Stay on time. Am I back up again? Okay. So contacting your legislators, and I want to thank Karen Thompson, who wrote this, and Shane, who added all of the information, and I'm simply narrating it. Okay. So writing our letters. So let me start really quickly with UDC or UPAN is a 501c3 nonprofit that cannot lobby. We are not a lobbying organization, which is why we're not a membership organization. Nobody pays dues to be part of UPAN. But families can contact their legislators. I can be Molly Prince, director and founder of UPAN, but I'm also Molly Prince, a constituent. So what affects one most often or will affect us all, and letter writing and emails to those in policy-making positions are powerful tools. Okay, Shane. Or next. Okay. When to write elected officials, it's usually a last resort. We've tried everything we can with the UDC, and the problems just continue. So when all attempts at working on an issue for change that is reasonable and is in the best interest of the incarcerated individuals and community in general with UDC are exhausted, that's when we can write. Some people I notice on the Facebook group say, write the governor. Writing to the governor has historically not been effective. The governor's office has aides that will read the emails and the letters, and then those involving the UDC are sent to the UDC for answers. While writing the governor is valuable in that it keeps his office informed of concerns, it won't necessarily result in quick change. So we suggest you can write your legislators. And the state legislators are the ones who will fund and oversee the prison, not our Congress people in Washington. Just there's a misconception, but the people in Washington are not funding Utah State Prison. Utah is funding Utah State Prison. Next. So how to find your legislator? A quick little thing that Shane set up is you go to le.utah.gov. About halfway down the home page is a box that has 3 buttons: quick links, trending bills, and find your legislator. Choose find your legislator to bring up a tool that allows you to enter your home address, and it will tell you who your elected state representative or state senator are. And then there's a way for you to fill in and email them right there on that page. You can click the contact button and it'll take you to another page, and somewhere on there you're going to find their contact address, both their email, their phone number, and their mailing address. And then you can also navigate to their page and see what committees and subcommittees they sit on. And it changes. After this last election, I was happy to learn that my new state representative sits on the Law Enforcement and Criminal Justice Subcommittee. So I wrote her a letter and sent her a copy of the newsletter and just said, this is who I am. I'm your constituent. And also I am with Utah Prisoner Advocate Network, and I notice you sit on this committee. So I just want to introduce myself, that maybe we'll be chatting in the future. It was a physical letter through USPS. I haven't heard back, but I did it, and that's all that matters. Okay, next. When you actually write a letter, you're going to begin with a greeting stating who you are. You might be a constituent or a concerned affected citizen or a subject matter expert on what you're writing about. Here's an example. I'm Jane Marie Doe, and I live in your district. And then this is who I am and what I do. And then give your email or give your full address, whether you're writing a physical letter or an email. And I recommend your phone number and email address as well. If you're writing a paper letter, have your letterhead at the top with your full name and address and phone number. It's okay if you've contacted your legislator previously about another matter to remind them, I'm Molly Prince. I wrote you last year about XYZ. And then provide a short and concise statement of your concern. Next. You might be writing for several reasons. One is to bring up a new issue that has not been addressed by the legislature in the past, to bring to their attention a concern about an existing law that you believe needs to be amended or changed or repealed, or to share your support or opposition to a particular bill or legislation that's going through and being discussed in the upcoming or current legislative session. Brian King has come to our Meet Your Legislator meetings. This is from about 2017. And we've had talks up at the Capitol. The other picture is just from when we were at a Day of Empathy at the legislature when it was in session, and we had several legislators come in and listen to us. Next. Each letter should be dedicated, or email should be dedicated to one issue or piece of legislation. Don't confuse it by talking about 3 different topics in one letter. Send a separate letter for each. If there's already a bill introduced, use the bill number. If a bill hasn't been introduced yet, then explain the issue. Then as part of that, choose 3 most important pieces of information to share about that issue or the bill, and be clear and specific about the information you're sharing. Give resources or sources, and then be very clear about what you're asking your legislature to do. Be informative and factual, and stay focused. And like I said before, if you have more than one issue that's not directly related, do a separate communication. Next. Letters should be no more than about 1 page, and emails should be about 500 words. The better informed, the more powerful advocate you become. Your continued involvement shows deeper concern when your words are followed by action, so show up and be prepared to contribute. When bills are being discussed, sometimes they have open ability for people to talk and testify. I know that Shane and some of our other directors just a couple of months ago were up at the Capitol giving their feedback on some things, and it makes a difference. Next, sorry. Okay, these are ways to stay informed of what the legislature is doing. You can go to the le.utah.gov and sign up to get emails for when different subcommittees are meeting, like the Law Enforcement and Criminal Justice Subcommittee or the Legislative Audit Subcommittee. But you can also track the voting records of how your individual representative and senator are voting on issues that you care about. And this whole document is going to be available for you if we can email it to you. But the Adam R. Brown is a BYU professor that follows how people vote. At le.utah.gov, their votes on specific bills. And then Utah Division of Archives has historical records of every legislative session. And Shane showed it to me the other day, and it goes back to like the 1800s. So you can look up how different lawmakers have voted on everything. You can follow the committee work. Each legislator is assigned to various committees and subcommittees. I recommend you pay attention to the 2025 House Law Enforcement and Criminal Justice Committee and the 2025 Judiciary, Law Enforcement, and Criminal Justice Committee, because they're going to be listening to bills that may be relevant to what your loved ones are involved in. And then the bills that they're working on are at those links. The session this year starts on January 21st and ends March 7th. Next. Okay, so acknowledge efforts and things to avoid. So do this. Karen says, acknowledge any support you see as well as progress, even if it's small. An email acknowledging effort is valuable. So if you see that your legislator was interviewed and has the same views on whatever the issue is that you are, email them and say, I saw you on KSL yesterday and thank you for supporting this, or thank you for fighting this. Let them know what you think. It makes a difference. And then avoid using anger in your communication. Avoid using slang. Avoid using misspelling, threats, or making assumptions. Don't include information that's based on half-truths, emotions, and things that are not facts. Don't be a bully, okay? And do not include generalizations that are not supported by data. So don't write your legislator and say, you know, officers just live to make incarcerated people's lives miserable. You know, that's not exactly true. There are some bad apples in there. But most of the officers that I've talked to and had the privilege of really getting to know a little bit, they want things to go smooth too, because it makes their lives easier. Happy prisoners make happy officers. Happy officers contribute to happy prisoners. It's really logical. Next. So the conclusion, you can make a difference by being honest and vulnerable in your writing, being persistent and consistent, open to feedback and criticism, and using writing as a tool for advocacy and social change. And the goal is learning how to harness our passion and our energy and channel it into advocating and its potential to make a positive difference in the lives of those who need our representation. And then that helps us too, because our loved ones need our representation. that makes our lives easier. And it gives us a really good purpose. Um, then I want to say, if you've attempted to advocate for your loved one, we're back to the prison piece. This is part of the summary, and I guess I didn't put it on a different slide. Um, if you tried by emailing or by calling the family medical line or reaching out to various staff or administrators and have not felt like you've made progress, you can ask UPAN for help. Provide all of the information, history, including any communications you've already had, to either contact at utahprisoneradvocate.org. And if it's medical in nature, you can email the medteam at utahprisoneradvocate.org. So we've got Ginny and Maureen on the med team as nurse practitioners. Marcia is a health educator, and I'm on the med team as a mental health, but I fill in the gaps. So I think that's it. Shane, is there a next?
Get it. And you nailed the time, Molly. Perfect.
Woohoo! Okay. I want to acknowledge that Angel just said, I want to say you are never alone as long as UPenn is around. No matter who you reach out to, they will always be willing to help problem solve as much as they can as providing appropriate resources. Thank you, Angel. And we really do try to do that. We want to empower you to advocate, but we also know that sometimes it takes someone else to write a letter. When my husband was alive, he wrote a couple letters that I cleaned up, but because I knew I just couldn't do it. I would either be in tears or I would be mad, and he would say, "Okay, I'm going to do it." And he was kind of blunt, so I would clean it up a little bit after he did it, but it gave me a chance to step back. So always run it by other people. Oh, Anne knows about the legislature. She says legislators really do listen to their constituents. They won't always have the same opinion as you do, but they listen and sometimes change their views if given enough information and treated with respect, just as we all want to be treated. And we saw that with getting, because UPenn got the legislative audit of the Board of Pardons and Parole accomplished. And that's the families got that done with surveys from inmates that inmates sent to us. And then the sex offense audit of the sex offense treatment program, the medical audit. There have been a couple more. There was an IPP audit once, but it wasn't very thorough, wasn't very helpful. So do we have any other questions?
See any in the chat here. Just lots of thank yous, wonderful guidance. Thank you, Molly and Amanda, for the presentations. Really helpful.
Does anyone from our JUAB contingent have anything they need to ask or want to say?
They're giving us a thumbs
Oh,
up.
I guess they can't talk. Okay. Good job. Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you all.
Does anybody here in the Zoom, any questions? Feel free to use the raise hand functionality. I can unmute you if you would like to speak.
Can I suggest that Karen might, if Karen's still here, I don't see everybody, might want to give an update on the holiday project, because Allison was and I were talking about it earlier, but maybe Karen, are you still here?
See her. Oh, there she is. She says Samsung.
Hello, I'm still here, but I've lost my my audio, so hopefully you can hear me.
Yes.
From what I read quickly as you were typing, Molly, the contributions to the holiday program were they were tremendous. We did something right there that shows what an advocacy group can do. We accomplished something that everybody told me was impossible. But what we found from this is we found that we have a community that will support us if we find the right way to approach them. And every time I would make a posting on my Facebook page and pull for a certain group of children that were looking for certain items on their wish list. Within an hour, I'd go back and check, and most of those had been filled. I also now I'm continuing to get thank you letters from the incarcerated, expressing things like, this is the first time in years that I've been able to participate in my child's Christmas. Letters that say, I spoke to my family just after they opened presents on Christmas morning, and it was so fun to have something exciting to talk to my children about. We really do appreciate everybody. We appreciate your hard efforts. We learned a lot of lessons, but we didn't get discouraged. We jumped in. We struggled in learning the drill and how to do it, but we learned a lot. We want to try it again next year. So in a couple of months, and I'll be reaching out to our UPAN community again for those who'd like to work on a committee for working towards next year. But I really want to sincerely thank everyone who participated. Made a difference. And that's the best we can do. If it's a difference and it's a positive difference, then we are accomplishing our goals in UPenn.
Thank you, Karen. And Karen is a rock star. She devoted every hour of every waking hour of every day for about 2 months to all of this. It was, I only devoted a couple of weeks of solid work on it. She did all of her holidays. It was devoted to this from October through the middle of December. So
I don't think
thank
she
you,
slept for
Karen.
3 months.
Pardon?
I don't think she slept for 3 months.
I know. So thank you. I'm trying to think of any other updates. I talked about the hospice thing. I'm really excited about that. And well, I'm going to put a plug in. There were apparently about 60 people. Oh, Dr. Sam, go ahead.
Oh, I didn't mean to stop you. I was gonna go after you finish your thoughts. Molly, do you want me to go or?
Go ahead.
Okay, so I am super excited. So the course we just taught at JUAB, I'm hoping the JUAB students will back me up. One of the portion of the course was teaching and learning how to advocate from the inside, how incarcerated people can advocate for programs, especially programs that what we call evidence-based programs, the ones that we know have been tested and shown to be the best solution. And the reason I added that to the course is that I wanted to teach an entire course on advocacy, but I couldn't find a textbook. And I was embarrassed that none of us have written a textbook to teach that course. And so the reason I share that is that what I have learned tonight, I didn't tell anyone that was one of my motive for coming, but I wanted to see if what you were presenting could help me because I'm having to develop a textbook for that upcoming course. And I think easily half of what I'm supposed to teach is gotten from this presentation. So I want to thank you and UPenn and all of you that have presented for sharing this. I am especially grateful that JUAB team joined because that gives them a chance to sort of preview because they are helping me to develop this. So thank you everyone for doing this. Now that I've seen the quality and it's beyond my expectation, I'll be approaching you for permission to see if we could, if you give us permission to use your material so we can develop the first textbook to teach incarcerated people and their families how to advocate for themselves, and it will be a university course. So thank you so much for this practical, easy to use, easy to understand, and what I think would be exciting for not just those of us here to learn. My hope is that we can turn it so that as many people as possible can learn to advocate. For so long, we think that it's for us to advocate, but we forget that incarcerated people can advocate if only we teach them and help them learn how to do that. So thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. That's so great. And I would love I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to reach any of you in Juab because I don't know your names. And I don't even know if Juab gets real mail or if you have to do postcards. Okay, well, anyway, I would love it if somebody, oh, now you can talk. I would just love it if somebody could share from your own experience and write an article for our UPAN newsletter on your courses that you've been doing down there with Dr. Sam. I think that would be really cool because I've been trying to get incarcerated people to write about the different things they're doing that help them inside the prison, like with the different programs. And I just think it would be so cool to have somebody from IPP write something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you do that?
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, we want you to know we all got A's out of Sam's class too.
Woohoo!
I know.
Good
Okay.
job.
Thanks, Dr. Sam. Thank you, Dr. Sam.
Yeah,
You-
I'd like to say,
Welcome. I should
I'd
say,
like to say something, if I could. I've had, I coordinate the newsletters going to inmates when they don't have any family members to send to them that our volunteers send. I had an inmate that transferred to your jail, and I couldn't forward and start sending the newsletter because the jail would not tell me. They said they're not allowed to tell me the inmate number of the people in the jail there, and the inmates are not allowed to receive mail unless the sender knows that inmate number. So I would like to encourage you down there, if you'd like to receive the newsletter, please write to UPAN and include your jail ID number and your full name so that we can get you on the list.
Thank you, we will. Thank you. Yeah, we've had problems heard that in the past, so thank you.
I can also help if it's easier to reach me. The jail commander, Sergeant Balu, is a good friend and he's been very kind in helping us to not only have working with the sheriff to authorize us not only to have the class, but listening to whatever needs. So if there's a situation where you can get information you need, feel free to connect with me and I would make sure that it gets to Sergeant Balu quickly or the sheriff so that we can kind of find a solution. So not to take over your job, Molly, but if it has to do with education or education materials, I have a channel that we can get it to the jail commander and they've been very kind. They made it easy for them to attend these events, which is amazing.
I'll get your
You
email
might
from
want
Molly
to
later.
put your email address.
Dr. Sam, do you want to put your email in the chat?
Yes, I'll go ahead and put it in the chat now. Thank you.
Okay, and any of the UPenn directors can email me and I can email you his address too. But yes, gentlemen down in Juab, if anyone wants to, or if you want to do it as a collaborative effort between all of you on the course the courses, the work that you've done with Dr. Sam and how it's helped. And also, I know it's a relatively small jail, but the pros and the cons of the jail, if you send those, then we can add that to some of the stuff that we're working on with IPP administration.
We'll go now. Great.
Thank you for attending. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
I wanted to say, this is just another brief update, but it was in December. Yeah, in December, they had the second family orientation at UDC's Fred House Academy. Instead of 6 people there, they had 60 people there. So we finally got the word out. UDC isn't very good about getting the word out, but we do our best to get the word out because we think it's really important for families to go to those orientations and learn. And the really cool thing about it, okay, I think it's cool because I've been doing this for almost 12 years, and to have UDC ask Carrie, who was there, our representative that was there, to work something out so that we could have UPAN flyers and information there for the families at the UDC orientation. We've come a long way. And so those of you who haven't gone to the family orientation, even if your loved one's been inside for a long time, if you live close enough to do it, I encourage you to attend in March. But we've been also advocating for them to put it online for people who do not live close. And they said they're planning on doing that in March. We don't have any information yet, but it's a step closer to getting it online. So that's good news.
Okay, we've got 15 minutes again left. We normally go to 8:30 unless there's no other questions. We usually reserve the last portion of this for an open discussion. We could delve into any topic of interest or to address your questions, so feel free to bring up any concerns or inquiries that you have about following any popular topics like what I've got listed there. Let's see, we've got something in the chat here. Speaking of mail, I wanted to mention that USCF website shows a new address that all mail needs to be sent. It now goes to Las Vegas for photocopying. The copies will be sent to their loved ones rather than the originals. Do you want to talk about Pigeonly and the new mail thing?
Yeah, we've had that in the family Facebook group for over a month, and then in the January newsletter we had a lot about it. So it started on January 6th. Everything needs to go to Pigeonly, and the contract, that's for Utah State Correctional Facility -1700. If it's for CUCF, it's CUCF-1701. So you have to have that code on there when it goes to Pigeonly at this address. The reason they're doing it, and you can read all about this in the UPAN newsletter because we've repeated it over and over and over again, and I know it hasn't reached everybody, but they're thinking that they're going to reduce the introduction of drugs and contraband into the facilities by no longer having mail from family and friends go directly to the facilities. Instead, it will go to Pigeonly, and it will be scanned, uploaded digitally, emailed digitally to the prospective prison's mailroom, and then a physical copy will be printed and mailed to the correct facility, which will be then distributed to the incarcerated individual. We saw in October at the graduation for the Citizens Academy, some of the directors saw the products because we were fighting this for like a long time. They've been trying to do this for 7 years. And so this is quality. It's not bad quality. You can read the letter. It's clear. The pictures that you send in, you can send in real pictures. They don't have to be copied on a piece of paper, and they will print them out on real photo paper. You can send in real greeting cards as long as they're not layered or sparkly or, as long as they can easily be scanned, and they'll be printed out on cardstock and mailed to our incarcerated loved ones. So that's a plus. The downside is that it's going to take a couple more days. Now, the prisons already take an excruciating long time to get the mail. Maybe not to get the mail, but to get it delivered to our loved ones. And this is going to add a couple days. Pigeonly is supposed to scan it the day they get it, and they're supposed to upload it the day they get it to the correctional facility, and then they're going to print it and then mail it in, and it goes out either overnight or 2-day mail, and then it gets to the facility, and it still has to be looked at for content and cleared through the facility, and then delivered to our loved ones. UDC says this will help them track when people are not getting their mail in a timely manner, which a lot of housing units are not getting mail in a timely manner. So maybe that's true. Maybe it will help track the mail better. As far as it reducing a significant amount of contraband, yeah, it's just kind of like all the restrictions they put into visiting. The quantity of contraband that is getting into USCF and CUCF is not coming through a visiting or some letters. It's coming through the system. I think we all know how it's coming through. So a lieutenant did tell some of us that were in a meeting with him about this in November that he hopes that will help the prison focus on investigating where they need to investigate to intercept where the drugs are really coming in. So that's all of it in a nutshell. Okay. Okay, Michelle Meinhardt has something in the chat. My son went to his board hearing and the hearing officer requested a psychological evaluation, but the other board members felt it wasn't necessary. Who and how do I get an evaluation? Okay, so Michelle, if the board ordered it and it's on his decisions sheet that you can find at bop.utah.gov, then he'll have to have one. But if the board members are not ordering it, he doesn't have to have one. It depends on the kind of psychological evaluation. If it's a regular, just straight psychological evaluation for mental health issues and intellectual functioning, that will be one kind. If it's a psychosexual evaluation for someone who's been accused of or has been convicted of a sexual offense, that's another type of person. So normally, if it's ordered, the prison's psychologist is supposed to do those, but they won't do them until whatever the deadline is that the board has put on the decision sheet. Like it'll say psychological evaluation to be submitted by, January 1, 2027 or whatever. So you can always email Michelle. You can email me if you have further questions.
Do you have anything to add, Michelle? I did unmute you if you had any follow-up.
Oh,
I don't, but thank you. I will email Molly.
okay. Please do.
Thank you.
Then there's something about Garfield. Hang on, let me look. Garfield County Jail mail sent through a mail facility in Texas, but it is not printed for them. It is uploaded to their tablets. He said it was unreadable, lines running through it, and photo not clear. Who do you suggest to report this to? I think, Anne, are you on here? Do you want to answer that? Do you want her to email you about it or?
Yes, you're welcome to email me, but I did write down the information. But yeah, go ahead and email me and I will put my email in the chat right now. And I'll contact them. I'm finding jails are not terribly responsive, but I feel like they seem to, anyway, we have a better relationship with UDC than we do with the jails for sure. Because they're all independent and anyway, but yeah, I will email them. I emailed Millard but had no response regarding their visitation and but anyway, we'll keep working on stuff.
Well, and maybe Deputy Warden Buchanan needs to kind of know some of this too.
Yeah, well, I do. Yeah, that's another thing.
Yeah. Okay, Lindsay says, I have a question about release and approval of address for APMP to transfer out of Salt Lake to Duchesne County. He's on a work releasing Duchesne now, and if he can be released from there, how to get the ball rolling. Okay. I have a warrant for a seatbelt ticket and driving with her. Okay, that's probably way too much to answer in this chat. So I think, Lindsay, you might need to go to the reentry team.
Okay.
Can you email us?
Yeah.
Because I need to think about all of these and then maybe consult with Anne on part of it.
Okay. Yeah. No, it's just a simple ticket, but I just don't want something to happen like over like a seatbelt ticket. I'm like, that would be horrible.
Well,
Yeah.
if you can clear that up before he gets out, that might be good.
Yeah.
Yeah, if it's a misdemeanor, I don't think it's really as big of a deal, but you just never know what APMP is going to do.
Yeah. And then I haven't heard back from him because I submitted an address like 2 months ago for him. And then I just did it again today. That's how I found your guys' little meet or whatever. Um, so I'm just wondering how do I go about that, or how do I figure out if the address got approved or if they've even seen it, you know?
Did you do it all online?
Yeah.
Okay, so email and remind me. Well, just put this whole thing in the email because
Okay.
I'm gonna recommend that you email Brock Findley, who
Uh-huh.
is the deputy warden in reentry and rehabilitation, because he should be able to connect you with the case managers of reentry to answer some of those questions.
Cool. Yeah,
Okay.
we just don't want him to go back to Salt Lake. I feel like it will be better just to get him out of Salt Lake and in a whole new place. I think it will just be, he'll have a better opportunity out here, I feel like.
Well, and I know they have released people from the jail they're in if they're going to be residing in that community. They don't
Uh-huh.
have to bring them back to Salt Lake, but
Cool.
I don't know that whole process because they're just getting this reentry thing really rolling. They've been working
Uh-huh.
on it, but it's just kind of being realized now. So please email and we'll get all the
Okay.
information we can.
Cool. And your email's on the page somewhere right here, or let's
It's
see.
just do,
Contact at.
Oh, okay.
Do you
Oh,
want your
right here.
specific email, Molly?
just
Um,
do contact at, and then we'll go from there.
cool. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Teresa says, my son was transferred to a jail that does not have a program he needs. Why would they do that and what can I do? Okay, we can't answer why they would do that. Here's our understanding that we were told in the Citizens Academy about how IPP people are selected, and it makes no sense. Okay, they have to be, they have to be healthy, not on any serious medications. They have to be like a good level of not causing problems. And they're kind of randomly chosen. And I still haven't found out if it's a computer that's doing this random choosing or what. But then there are some staff that kind of try to review and see if there's a reason they shouldn't be transferred, which means um, if he was in a program and transferred out, that should never have happened. And you need to write the IPP people. Okay, there's the inmate placement program directors at the UDC that oversee the contracts. And so maybe you need to email us with all the specifics, name, dates, what jail, all of that. And then Ann and I can consult and we can figure out, but I think it needs to be brought to Deputy Warden Buchanan, who's over IPP's attention, if he was pulled out of the prison and put in a jail where he can't do what he needs. Boy, Ann, you're going to be very busy with me for the next few weeks.
And I put in the wrong email, so ignore the one I put in. I better
yeah,
go back and look at what's on my.
Okay, email her at ann.bradshaw@utahprisoneradvocate.org.
Yeah.
We don't have the network on the .org email address, just for people
Okay.
who know. Okay.
Tashelle Wright asks, will you remind us the time frame for submitting an address verification form? I'm recalling 90 days before.
I don't know. I'm not a reentry expert on everything that they've put on the computer late or on the online lately. I think it is 90 days, but I could be wrong. Although I know people have submitted like 30 days because there have been people that have gotten a 30-day date, like unexpectedly from the board. Um,
I'm looking at their website. I'm trying to. Did they move the link? Property pickup release day of visitation.
yeah, they should add it on there. I haven't had the pleasure of filling out that address verification, so I'm not familiar with it.
Oh, it's under probation and parole tab under address verification form. And it just says to expedite the approval process, it's very important that you provide as much information as being asked. No single answer is an automatic disqualifier for any resident. This information is used to assist the approving agent or office to help determine the appropriateness of the address, but then it doesn't really say how long before.
That's now the problem with having all this stuff online. They don't always give contact information, like who to call or who to email. So, if you want to email us at Utah Prisoner Advocate, or whatever, contact at utahprisoneradvocate.org, that will remind us to ask.
You can always, if you wanted to ask corrections directly, you could always email corrections at corrections@utah.gov. I had a brain fart there. Or
it's contact at, isn't it?
no. If you want to email UDC directly,
Oh, okay.
corrections@utah.gov, I believe.
I thought it was contact at correction. Okay, that's fine. Or Jade Watkin or Karen Topahy.
Yeah. Warren's got a question.
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
I'm beside myself with the quality that's been shown on this meeting. The slides are beyond belief. I assume that Shane put those together. Professionalism is outstanding. It can't be topped. And talk about rock stars. If Shane's responsible for these slides that we've been seeing the last 2 hours, he is the Elvis of UPAN. No kidding. I mention this because since last November and until now, I've been working on two projects. One is putting together some flying stories and some running stories for a person who's interested in those subjects. And I'm about halfway through that. And I was also preparing another package for professional writing for a fellow down in Florida that I'm acquainted with. And that was 48 pages. And that'll go in the mail tomorrow. And I know the extent of time and effort put into preparing presentations like this, and to me it's mind-boggling. I'm wondering if I really am qualified to be in an organization with such professionalism. Believe me, superstars have been demonstrated tonight. So that's all I'll say right now. Thanks so much.
Shane is in the building.
Thank you, Warren. But you cram as many words as I can give you into a 10-page newsletter every single month.
It's fun.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
the whole team is amazing. We talked a little bit about volunteering earlier. I mean, I probably wouldn't have met these people any other way except for through UPAN, and it's been such a rewarding experience. So you get out of it what you put into it, but it really does feel good. So volunteering, it's so hard to advocate for one person, but I always like to say, rising tide lifts all boats, right? So if you can advocate for one, you can advocate for many, and most of the things that we deal with are systemic anyway. So I'd encourage you to, get involved. If not with UPAN, there's plenty of volunteering opportunities out there, even with the prison. So,
yeah. And I just have to say, Shane or Warren, so Karen Thompson wrote the part on the legislation, and Shane added some things to it. And I wrote the first part, and Amanda wrote the thing on the actual stuff. But Shane spent, was it 6 hours, 8 hours? On Saturday, we spent from 11 a.m. until like 5:30 or 6 p.m., however many hours that is, on a Zoom call with him transferring all that data into the slides and me playing around with things like, oh, the color of the headings and finding pictures. But he got that all put in there and corrected our grammar, corrected all of our misspellings. It was,
don't look too close, because the first half of the presentation is like all nicely formatted, and then you can tell, like, after I got to slide like 30, then it was like, oh, ran out of time, and it was just kind of slapped together.
no, Shane very kindly spent hours helping me, or we wouldn't have had a PowerPoint.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was
And all this
wonderful.
information, by the way, I put out a note on our family support group, and I think actually on our main Facebook page, but we're very much looking to enhance our website with more quality content. And so if you guys, if there's anything that you would really like to know more about, feel free to email me personally or contact at utahprisoneradvocate.org. We're looking to enhance the prisoner family 101 section, especially to put just more really good content in there. I've got a content outline made, and so I'm going to be calling on the directors as subject matter experts to help me write those and get them up on the website. And this information will be included up there. Just I'll put this up shortly, so give me a couple of hours. I'll get this put up on the website, and then I'll also share it on social media if you want a copy of this. And then, of course, you can watch the video.
One of the things that might be copied somehow or other is a picture you found of the woman shouting into her phone. That brought a smile to everybody. And if it was copied and enlarged and framed and put on everybody's wall, they would remember to modify their behavior, because they don't want to be like that person.
If you recall, there were 2 slides with the same woman, and I felt strongly, I'm like, okay, we got to have one where she's yelling and then the other one where she's introspective. And so it was very much a conscious decision.
Yeah. Yes.
Quick plug, we're over time, you guys. So quick plug to the next UPAN meeting will be on February 10th. Special guest will be the Utah Prison Education Project, or UPEP. They are phenomenal. They do so much great work. They have presented to UPAN before. I think that it was before the pandemic, because it was an in-person one. So they've done so much good in the past 5 years. We're excited to have the new directors from UPEP come and talk about what they're doing. So, and of course, all this will be same time, same channel. And watch your inboxes if you've subscribed, and you'll have the email. But thank you to everyone. Thank you to all the presenters. Thank you for joining, and this video will be up on Facebook and our website shortly.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
See you, Dr. Sam.
Thank you.
Thank you, Molly. Good night, everyone.
Bye.
Good night.
Bye now.